fill the hole. Bring it down. That's one.
America has a major health crisis caused by illicit fentanyl, the highly addictive narcotic.
We were seeing a lot of these.
It's commonly sold in the form of small blue pills and is sometimes laced into other drugs. A team of Reuters reporters spent months finding out just how easy it is to get hold of everything needed to begin making and selling these synthetic opioids.
We potentially had enough chemicals to make somewhere in the range of $3 million worth of street drugs.
What we discovered helps to explain why US authorities are struggling to get on top of the illicit trade.
In some areas of the country, like Philadelphia, you see fentanyl being present in nearly all opioid samples that we test.
It's the synthetic opioid that's killing tens of thousands of Americans a year. Fentanyl is the street drug behind the majority of the fatal overdoses recorded in the US last year.
More people in the United States between the ages of 18 to 49 die from fentanyl than from guns, car accidents, or any other cause, period. So today, with this new understanding, we're taking action to significantly reduce the flow of precursor chemicals and pill presses from China to the Western Hemisphere. It's going to save lives, and I appreciate President Xi's commitment on this issue.
The Biden administration, with China's apparent cooperation, wanted to smash illicit fentanyl supply chains. Chinese exports of the final product dried up in 2019 after a Beijing crackdown. But then, the Mexican cartels stepped in. They took over production of fentanyl. Chinese suppliers provided the raw ingredients. Now, the US, Mexico, and China are linked in a toxic triangle as the drug's biggest consumer, manufacturer, and raw materials supplier. The trade does not hinge solely on the final product, but also on the supply of chemicals known as precursors, which are the drug's essential ingredients. A Reuters team, including reporter Mo Taman, found that buying and turning these precursors into fentanyl requires only an internet connection, some virtual currency, and a basic grasp of chemistry. Reuters did not make the final product.
We did not make any fentanyl, and we certainly had no intention of doing so. We consulted with our lawyers before we bought any precursor chemicals or any equipment to make sure that we complied with the law.
The problem for authorities is many of the precursors used to make synthetic opioids are also crucial to legitimate and legal industries, so restricting them is problematic. Cautious suppliers are also pivoting to less regulated precursors that require just minor extra synthesis steps to be transformed into fentanyl. Wynne Hornbuckle, a Justice Department spokesperson, said it and the Drug Enforcement Agency are aggressively investigating and prosecuting every link in the fentanyl supply chain, whether in China, Mexico, or the United States. He warned that those who fail to follow US law regarding fentanyl precursor chemicals or equipment used to make the drug risk regulatory sanctions and criminal prosecutions. Liu Pengyu, spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in Washington, said his country has tough anti-narcotics laws and has been cracking down on traffickers and online advertising related to fentanyl and its precursors. He said scapegoating China won't help the US solve its fentanyl problem.
So over here we have all the things we bought to make fentanyl, and the stuff that we bought from China was shipped to a mailbox in Jersey City. We also had about the same amount of material also shipped to our Mexico City, the idea being that we wanted to illustrate how easy it was to get these chemicals.
Our reporters spent $3,600 buying 12 precursors that were deemed authentic by professional labs, as well as the equipment needed to manufacture fentanyl.
We just wanted to illustrate and show how the supply chain worked. We have shown for the first time exactly how These chemicals are traveling both from China to both the United States and Mexico. Most often the chemicals that are coming into the US are ultimately ending up back in Mexico, where they are processed into fentanyl and then brought back into the States, where they are sold on the streets. Now for as little as $1, depending where you are. Even at $1, the profit is massive for ultimately the cartels. If you think about it, we potentially had enough chemicals to make somewhere in the range of $3 million worth of street drugs.
The ease with which our reporters bought the drug-making chemicals exposed holes in the world's regulatory framework and law enforcement. Prowling the dark web wasn't necessary, as vendors and crude digital advertisements abound on the regular internet. Purchases were made using encrypted messaging services and mainly cryptocurrency.
We found that ultimately finding those chemicals was not difficult, and they're advertised all over the open web. We found the ads all over the place. These sellers are not particularly shy. They are generally pretty open about knowing that their chemicals they sell are going to be used for the purposes of making drugs. We were able to, over the course of the next 6 months to the year, make at least a dozen purchases of various chemicals. Some of them were fakes, and we got ripped off a couple of times.
Some of the packages arrived bearing false labels, apparent attempts to deceive customs authorities. Reuters consulted Alex J. Krotolski, a chemist who tests and studies illicit drugs at the non-profit Center for Forensic Science Research and Education near Philadelphia.
I've been working as a forensic scientist for 10 years, so fentanyl has been something that's been around that entire time. It certainly wasn't as prevalent as it is now. In some areas of the country, like Philadelphia, you see fentanyl being present in nearly all opioid samples that we test.
I imagine when you first started, most of the fentanyl, the illicit or non-pharmaceutical fentanyl that was coming into the States was coming in from China, right? I mean, pre-made, finished product coming into the States. Is that correct?
Prior to 2018, we were seeing a lot of fentanyl and fentanyl analogs in their final state, the final drug product, coming from China. For pigment ink.
In 2019, China cracked down on exports of finished fentanyl, effectively shifting production of the finished drug.
China, rather than making the final products, started making the precursors. Those precursors were being sent elsewhere. And then those precursors over time have also been scheduled. So there's been changes in to the synthesis pathway based on the regulation or controlling of those precursors.
In all, Kotolski and his team tested 6 of the substances Reuters sourced. 5 were legitimate precursors, 1 was a fake. Reuters also bought a pill press, 2 dye molds, and a blue-coloured binding agent. All that's required to produce small light blue tablets stamped with an M and 30, the signature markings of a generic version of the prescription painkiller oxycodone. Securing the remaining ingredients was not difficult. These included the essential precursor aniline, other needed chemicals such as ammonia, and the final gear, such as a full-face respirator. All those materials were purchased on America's most popular shopping site, Amazon.com. Amazon told us that aniline is a legal and widely available product, and so are all the other materials we bought there.